You know, even though Web3 is the newest frontier of the web, we still spend an enormous amount of time on Web2 things, right? And that's completely natural. That's kind of how things go. But if we want to move the space forward, you got to normalize everything about Web3, and that includes Web3 websites. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how to implement your own. It's a really easy process. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the weaknesses now that exist with Web3 websites, because there are some pretty big ones. And whether you want to do this at this moment in time at all, what are the ups and downs of that? My name is Trent Kennelly. I'm a Web3 marketing strategist, and this is the best place for you to learn about Web3, NFTs, AI, and how to market it all. So if that sounds good to you and you're excited, make sure that you like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you're into it. Comment to let me know what you're thinking about implementing with a Web3 domain, a Web3 website. I would love to be able to help you out in any way I can. And let's get started. Okay, so let's just start right here. So I'm currently on the Brave browser and I'm on a domain that I own, trentkennelly.eth. There's nothing there. We haven't done anything with it. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is, I think we're just going to go ahead and copy this web page. Okay, this is my web page, very simple, nothing big to it. So we'll go ahead and file save page as, and we'll just call it home, level me up, that's fine. Save it there. And it's going to download. Okay, so the next thing we're going to need, there's one of two ways that we can go about this. So the first one is IPFS. So this is your interplanetary file system. This is the way that all Web3 projects kind of communicate with each other. And just as a reminder, what that means is that every file is kind of locally stored and shared with everybody else. Okay, and so what you have here is you're going to download this. So I'll show you where to do that. I'll put the link in the description because this is very confusing. When you type, or when you, click get started, you're going to say install desktop FPS, and it's going to take you here, which is the docs, inexplicable. Where you're actually trying to get is here to this GitHub file, and there's a bunch of different installations based on what you have. So if you're on Mac, I downloaded this one. If you're on Windows, I can't help you. So that's the first way to go about it. And so you download IPFS, and you're going to look at a screen like this. And there's just not going to be a lot of info to start with. And then you take that file that we downloaded, import the file, click a file here, and we're just going to come down here and we're just going to click home level me up.html. Okay, open that, and it's going to give you this little hash right here. Okay, and so what you can do is you can copy that. That's copy CID here. And we're going to go back to our Brave browser. And we're going to put in IPFS : / and then just paste that hash. Now, one of the reasons that I don't really like to go for this is sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. I find it pretty inconsistent. But the first thing you're going to notice is that this is a hot mess, right? This looks nothing like this, right? This is a much nicer, cleaner, simpler page. We're going to talk about that weakness a little bit more at the end of the video, but one of the problems is dynamic builds and simplicity versus complexity of the HTML on the back end. But in any case, you can see that this is here, so we know at this point that really we want to build something that's a lot more simple, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. So that's one way that you can do it. Now, the biggest weakness to this way of doing it is that this only works, meaning this page is only live when your computer is on. And the reason for that is that, again, this is a decentralized space, and it means that everything is on these local servers. And if you are the only one who hosts this website, then it's only going to be live when your computer is on. But if you share it to other servers, to other people, to friends and family, then those people will have it on, and theoretically the website is always live, right? So there is something to the decentralized nature that's a little bit of a weakness to this. Now, you can use a product like Infura, which I have up here. So here you would just come to Infura. So Infura is basically an API that allows you to talk directly to the blockchain for lots of different things. So you can see I have arbitrages that I'm thinking about working on right now. Otherwise, stats transactions, IPFS, which is again the interplanetary file system. That's what we're looking at. So you would just create a project here. You would call it whatever you want, new project, so creative. Click create, and then enter your credit card and you get started, because you get 5 gigs of total storage for free but then you start paying on it. So that's 5 gigs of total storage. That's not like a monthly limit or something like that. Okay. So that's important to keep in mind. The other option is that you can use a system like Pinata. So Pinata is another service that allows you to post these domains very simply and easily. And so you can see that I did the exact same thing here. So I'll add a file here, and we're just going to go ahead and drag you right in there, upload it, and it's going to upload it, and it's going to do that exact same thing. It's going to create that CID. Okay, so let's refresh the page, see what we got. So I have, again, this CID, so I could, again, copy, paste, go back to the Brave browser here, do the exact same thing, and you would see it. Okay, now we know that nobody is going to be searching for this gigantic and horrendous looking hash code, right? So what that means is that the next thing that we need to do is we need to bind it to our already owned domain. Okay, so I need to bind it to trentkennelly.eth. So we'll go ahead over here to app.ens.domains. Now, I want to point out that an Ethereum name service domain is an NFT, right? And so you can buy it here. So I could search for something here. So let's say dog food, because I have to mention it in every video, and we'll search for it. And let's see what comes up. Dogfood.eth. So I could buy dogfood.eth. That could end up being a very valuable name. I see it's unavailable, but nonetheless, it's a possibility. So you could buy it here, or you could buy it on a place like OpenSea. Just look for ENS here. You're going to get Ethereum name service right there. You can see that there's way too many to actually get any kind of good stats off of it. But you can see all of these different domains for sale, and you could buy one there if you want. But that's not a created domain. That's what somebody else created, and you can buy. So somebody did create it, of course, but it already exists, which isn't that interesting for you, right? You want to have something that's in your own name or your own specific title. Unless you find something interesting here, then go with it. Keep in mind that with an ENS domain, you have to pay something. It's just like any time that you buy a domain, but you own it at the end of the day. Okay, so in any case, I'm going to come back over here. Let's go back to the front. I'm going to connect, and so now you can see I'm connected. I'm going to go to my account. There's my address, and you can see I have my domain right here. So I'll click on that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same IPFS hash, right? So here, right here, I'm going to do that exact same thing. Oops, sorry. I'm going to do that exact same thing here in content. Click add edit record, go down to content, IPFS : Control V to save it. And we're going to confirm. We're going to confirm. This is going to cost a little bit of money because there's gas, right? So we're going to confirm it again. And you can see it costs a little bit, costs $5. Okay. And we're going to confirm that. And then we will be able to see it on the blockchain. So let's go see if we see it. And there you go. It still shows this ugly thing up here, but you can get to it from trentkennelly.eth. That is literally all there is to it. Now, you might decide, I hate the way that this thing looks. And honestly, I hate the way that this thing looks. Okay. But there are ways to fix this and make this look a little bit better. This is just a WordPress page that I pulled off and slapped up here just for example purposes. If you want to see what the code looks like, you can, it's easier to do this on IPFS than it is on Pinata. You can just go to your files, just like this, and you can click on it, and then it's right there. And that's just the information. You can't edit it in that state or anything like that. But you can kind of see, what information is there. This is public information anyway. You could already go here, view the page source, and do the exact same thing. And then you can kind of see how you can clean this up a little bit if you understand what you're looking for. But again, this is a little bit of a complicated process when it comes to Web3 domains. So the best thing that I can probably advise at this point is to go to a very simple website builder. So when I say that, I mean like the WordPress Gutenberg builder, but that's even a little bit heavy. I also mean, building something through GPT, like ChatGPT or something like that, to start to build something out yourself, or at least look at this code and understand where things are going wrong and why the appearance is so bad. There isn't a really easy solution for this, and as we're going to talk about in just a second, that's one of the great weaknesses for Web3 domains. Now, you probably noticed that that wasn't the cleanest setup in the world. I don't know how you could have missed that, and you're absolutely right. There are some huge weaknesses when it comes to Web3 websites. Now, I got into a lot of detail about that in this video, but I want to jump through a few of these now because it's really important to discuss. And let's start with this one. Web3 domains just are not as built out as Web2 domains are. On Web2, there are hundreds and thousands of website builders and all these different methods for easily slapping together a website. They've even taken away a lot of that initial setup pain when it comes to things like picking a domain, getting hosting, attaching services, working with your DNS, etc. If you're using an all-in-one system like Squarespace or Shopify or Wix, it is just super, super easy now. It's almost mindless. That same level of ease just hasn't made its way to Web3. There isn't really a website builder to speak of. Everything is kind of back to being written in HTML and CSS, which is obviously a huge issue when it's gotten so easy to build a website that people have basically forgotten that HTML and CSS even exist, right? And then you add to this that .eth doesn't have support for some things that we've come to think of as very normal and expected, like dynamic sizing for web pages that are on mobile or desktop or iPads or whatever, so that the website always looks good no matter what device it's on. And you can see that this is an enormous weakness. Another big weakness is that most browsers right now just don't support Web3 domains. And in fact, as far as I can tell, the only one that does is the Brave browser, which is specifically designed as a Web3 browser anyway, so it kind of makes sense. But this is obviously a huge limitation when you consider how much time and energy goes into building a website, especially if you don't have a builder to use while putting that website together. That's insanity. And this is probably the biggest downside, and this is bigger than the other two I just mentioned, but it's expensive to build a decentralized website. So remember when I talked about needing to connect that transaction hash, that hash that you have for your website, to the Ethereum address so that you can actually have a domain that people can visit? Well, as with everything blockchain related, that cost gas, right? You remember it was like $5 or something like that, which means that every time you need to update it, gas is involved. So you need to be extremely intentional about when you implement changes, because there's not any kind of after the fact fine tuning involved here. You have to be intentional or you're going to nickel and dime yourself to death. So those are some pretty heavy downsides, right? And it kind of begs the question, is it even worth doing this? And honestly, right now, I kind of think it's worth just having something basic up there. Don't go crazy. Don't get super complex. Consider that as Web3 gains traction, all of that Web2 functionality is going to come to Web3 eventually. And as that happens, I really see another kind of domain gold rush coming, just like what happened with .com in the 2000s. That is coming, so you need to be ready for it. So one good reason to do this is just to be ready. But should you put a huge amount of effort into this? That I would be a little bit more hesitant about, because consider that Web2 pages are still where almost all of business is happening online right now. So you don't want to pin all your hopes and dreams on this Web3 page just yet. Instead, I would put more effort into the Web2 side of things and just kind of keep growing this Web3 domain as things evolve in the coming months and years. So there you go. That's a quick guide to getting your web page started on Web3 and through Brave browser and all that. I hope that that was helpful for you. Let me know what you're looking at marketing in the Web3 space. I would love to be able to help you out with this page or anything you need, really. Otherwise, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're into it, and I will catch you in the next one.